Hello, my friend. Tonight we'll journey to a sleepy valley where the clouds hang low, and something quite curious once happened. A goat was made king. Settle in, but before you get comfortable, like and subscribe, and comment your favorite fantasy world. Only if you enjoy our stories, though. With that, let this story carry you gently toward dreams. The goat who became king of Grumble Hollow. Once upon a time, tucked between two gentle green hills, and shaded by a canopy of sleepy old trees, there sat a peculiar village called Grumble Hollow. It was the sort of place where the roosters crowed with a sigh, and the wind rustled the leaves like it too was a bit tired. The people of Grumble Hollow were famous across the region for one very specific thing. They complained, endlessly, passionately, about the weather, the price of turnips, the squeaky door at the bakery, and the uneven cobblestones in the main square. But the one thing they complained about more than anything else was their leaders. Every year, the village held a town election, and every year, someone would stand up and promise that everything would get better. And every year, that someone would make everything just a little bit worse. There was once a mayor who banned dancing on Thursdays, claiming it disrupted the trout in the river. Another one tried to enforce a town-wide bedtime of 6 p.m. because he didn't like the sound of laughter in the evening. By the time we enter this tale, the villagers were more tired of voting than they were of weeding. No one trusted anyone to run the town, not even themselves. Then, one drizzly spring morning, old Biddy, who was possibly the oldest person in the village, stood up at the town square with her crooked back and her crooked cane, and said, "I nominate my goat." A silence swept over the crowd. Then a few chuckles, then a shrug. Then someone muttered, "Why not?" And the very next day, the ballots were counted, and Bartholomew the goat had won. Bartholomew, or Barty, as old Biddy called him, was a large, handsome goat, with a grizzled beard, and an expression of mild concern, as if he was constantly remembering something he had forgotten. He had never once spoken, of course, but he had a quiet dignity to him. The townspeople fashioned a crown from a pie tin and painted it gold. His royal robe was made from an old curtain with a mustard stain. He was led to the mayor's chair, formerly used only to hold sacks of hay, and there he sat, King Bartholomew the First. The villagers stood awkwardly in silence. Barty chewed a bit of straw. Someone clapped. And just like that, the reign began. Reign of King Bartholomew the First. At first, nothing changed. Barty would spend his days sitting in the mayor's chair, staring off into the distance. Occasionally, he'd wander into the marketplace and nibble on cabbage. But oddly enough, things got better. There were no more arguments in council meetings. No one shouted or stormed out. When someone proposed an idea, the villagers would look to Barty. If he snorted, they'd reconsider. If he remained quiet, they'd carry on. "King Barty, shall we repair the bridge?" "Ma." "Excellent." Motion passed. The village carpenter began making benches instead of gallows. The baker stopped arguing with the miller and started baking loaves shaped like goats. Children played games where they pretended to be Barty issuing royal proclamations, like every citizen must pet 3 dogs a day, or all socks must match, unless you're feeling spicy. Peace settled over Grumble Hollow like a warm blanket, and Barty just kept chewing. Of course, not everyone was pleased. A travelling official from the capital arrived one day, demanding to see the town's mayor. "This is absurd," he cried upon seeing Barty. But the townspeople defended their king. "Barty listens better than any mayor we've had. He never lies, and he's never raised taxes." The official, flustered, left with a goat hoofprint on his paperwork. Even during crises, Barty's calm demeanour soothed nerves. When a windstorm knocked over the granary roof, the villagers panicked. But when they ran to the mayor's office, they found Barty standing in the doorway, unmoved, straw in mouth, unbothered. And something about that helped. "Right," said the blacksmith. "Let's fix it then." The Festival of the Crown. After 1 full year of his reign, the people of Grumble Hollow threw a celebration, the Festival of the Crown. They decorated the streets with woolly banners, held goat-themed games like haystack diving and bleat for a treat, and baked a cake in the shape of Barty's head, though no one dared eat it. At the heart of it all, Barty stood proudly on a bale of hay while old Biddy scratched his chin. "Best king we ever had," she said, and everyone applauded. The final days. Years passed. Barty grew older, slower. He spent more time napping in the sun. The villagers noticed, but no one said it out loud. One morning, old Biddy arrived at the mayor's office with a cup of warm tea. Barty didn't rise to greet her. He had passed in the night, peacefully, with a bit of hay still in his mouth. The village held a funeral unlike any other. They built a statue in the square, a goat in a crown, gazing into the horizon. And every spring, on the day of his coronation, they laid flowers and told stories. Grumble Hollow never elected another mayor. They didn't need one. They had Barty's wisdom in their hearts, and a town that had learned to govern itself with kindness, patience, and just a bit of hay. And so, dear listener, the tale of the Goat King lives on, not in laws or ledgers, but in the quiet contentment of those he led. And as always, sleep well, friends.